Question 1. Upon reviewing the current admission process for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam, a department head observes significant delays in candidate verification. To address this, they propose implementing a new, faster verification system that bypasses the standard multi-stage approval protocol to expedite candidate onboarding. Which approach best aligns with the Academy's regulatory framework and ethical standards for process optimization? Option A. Focus on increasing the staffing levels within the current verification department without altering the existing procedural steps, assuming more personnel will inherently resolve the delays. Option B. Immediately implement the new, faster verification system, overriding the existing protocol to accelerate candidate onboarding and inform relevant authorities of the change retrospectively. Option C. Propose a phased implementation of a revised verification workflow, ensuring all changes are documented, approved by relevant academic committees, and communicated to all involved parties, while maintaining the integrity of the verification criteria. Option D. Suggest a complete overhaul of the entrance exam content to make it less complex, thereby reducing the time required for all subsequent processing stages. The correct answer is C. Propose a phased implementation of a revised verification workflow, ensuring all changes are documented, approved by relevant academic committees, and communicated to all involved parties, while maintaining the integrity of the verification criteria. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficiency with the imperative to adhere to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established admission procedures and regulatory guidelines. Misinterpreting or circumventing these processes can lead to unfairness, procedural errors, and potential breaches of academic integrity, all of which are serious concerns within an educational institution's operational framework. The Academy's entrance exam regulations are designed to ensure a standardized and equitable admission process. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing admission process to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, without compromising the integrity or fairness of the examination and selection criteria. This aligns with the Academy's commitment to transparency and adherence to its own established rules, which are implicitly governed by principles of good governance and academic administration. Optimizing processes in this manner ensures that any changes are well considered, documented, and implemented in a way that upholds the Academy's standards and regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on expediting the process by bypassing established documentation and approval stages is ethically and regulatorily unsound. Such an approach risks introducing errors, overlooking critical compliance checks, and potentially creating a precedent for future procedural shortcuts that could undermine the entire admission system. It fails to respect the established governance structure and the importance of due diligence in academic admissions. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate, unverified solutions without consulting relevant stakeholders or understanding the underlying reasons for current inefficiencies is also problematic. This can lead to superficial fixes that do not address the root causes of delays and may even create new problems. It demonstrates a lack of thoroughness and a failure to engage with the comprehensive nature of process optimization, which requires understanding the entire workflow and its implications. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the problem or inefficiency. 2. Gathering comprehensive information about the current process, including its regulatory basis and operational steps. 3. Identifying potential solutions that are compliant with all relevant Academy regulations and ethical standards. 4. Consulting with relevant departments and stakeholders to assess the feasibility and impact of proposed changes. 5. Documenting all proposed changes and their justifications. 6. Implementing changes through an approved and monitored channel. Question 2. Process analysis reveals a potential for significant cost savings by streamlining the Academy's student fee collection and disbursement procedures. The proposed optimization involves consolidating multiple payment gateways into a single, less expensive provider and automating the reconciliation process using a new software solution. However, the current system has several manual checks and balances designed to prevent errors and ensure accurate financial reporting, which would be significantly altered by the proposed changes. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for process optimization within an academic institution like Akhbar Academy. Option A. Prioritize the selection of the least expensive payment gateway provider and implement the automation software without extensive testing, relying on the vendor's assurances of functionality and security. Option B. Proceed with the automation of the reconciliation process using the new software, but delay the consolidation of payment gateways until a later phase to minimize the immediate disruption to existing financial operations. Option C. Immediately implement the proposed changes to realize the cost savings, assuming the new software's built-in controls are sufficient and the reduction in manual oversight is an acceptable trade-off for efficiency. Option D. Conduct a thorough risk assessment of the proposed changes, focusing on the impact on existing internal controls, data security, and compliance with Academy financial policies and relevant Egyptian financial regulations, before proceeding with any implementation. The correct answer is C. Immediately implement the proposed changes to realize the cost savings, assuming the new software's built-in controls are sufficient and the reduction in manual oversight is an acceptable trade-off for efficiency. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficiency and cost reduction with the imperative to maintain the integrity and security of financial processes, as mandated by the Akhbar Academy's internal regulations and any applicable Egyptian financial oversight guidelines. The Academy, as an educational institution, must ensure that its financial operations are transparent, accountable, and compliant with all relevant laws and internal policies. A hasty or poorly considered process optimization can lead to significant risks, including data breaches, financial mismanagement, and reputational damage. The correct approach involves a thorough, phased implementation of process optimization that prioritizes risk assessment and mitigation. This means identifying critical control points within existing financial processes, evaluating the potential impact of any proposed changes on these controls, and ensuring that new or modified processes are robust, secure, and fully compliant with the Academy's established financial procedures and any relevant Egyptian banking or financial regulations. This approach upholds the ethical duty of care and the regulatory requirement for sound financial management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without a comprehensive risk assessment fails to adhere to the principle of due diligence. This could lead to the introduction of vulnerabilities in the financial system, potentially violating internal controls designed to prevent fraud or error, and contravening any Egyptian laws requiring robust financial safeguards. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established approval protocols for process changes demonstrates a disregard for institutional governance and internal audit requirements. This undermines accountability and transparency, which are fundamental to sound financial management and regulatory compliance. Such an approach could also lead to the implementation of processes that are not aligned with the Academy's overall strategic objectives or legal obligations. A third incorrect approach that relies on external, unvetted software solutions without rigorous testing and integration planning risks introducing security flaws and operational inefficiencies. This neglects the ethical responsibility to protect institutional assets and data, and it fails to meet the regulatory expectation for secure and reliable financial systems. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the objectives of the process optimization. Second, conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, identifying potential financial, operational, and compliance risks associated with any proposed changes. Third, consult relevant internal policies, procedures, and external regulations. Fourth, develop a detailed implementation plan that includes testing, training, and contingency measures. Fifth, secure appropriate approvals from all relevant stakeholders and oversight bodies. Finally, monitor the performance and effectiveness of the optimized process post-implementation. Question 3. Process analysis reveals that the current method for managing applicant data for the Akhbar Academy entrance exam is prone to delays and potential inaccuracies. Which of the following represents the most appropriate approach to optimize this process, strictly adhering to the Academy's internal regulations and established examination protocols? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the existing data management workflow, identifying specific points of inefficiency and proposing modifications that align with the Academy's documented procedures for handling sensitive applicant information and examination logistics. Option B. Solicit suggestions for process improvements from recent applicants and their parents, and implement the most frequently suggested changes without formal vetting by Academy administration. Option C. Immediately implement a new, widely advertised cloud-based applicant tracking system that promises faster data entry, without consulting the Academy's IT department or reviewing its data privacy policies. Option D. Prioritize reducing the time taken for data entry by streamlining the input fields, even if it means omitting certain verification steps that are currently in place to ensure data accuracy. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of the existing data management workflow, identifying specific points of inefficiency and proposing modifications that align with the Academy's documented procedures for handling sensitive applicant information and examination logistics. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient information dissemination with the ethical obligation to ensure accuracy and prevent the spread of misinformation, particularly in the context of an academic entrance exam. The integrity of the examination process is paramount, and any deviation from established protocols can undermine trust and fairness. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement the most effective and compliant methods for process improvement. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing procedures to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements that align with the Akhbar Academy's established guidelines for examination administration. This ensures that any changes enhance the process without compromising its integrity or violating regulatory requirements. The justification for this approach lies in its adherence to principles of good governance and operational excellence, which are implicitly expected in the administration of any formal examination process. By focusing on internal process optimization, the Academy maintains control over its procedures and can ensure compliance with its own internal regulations and any overarching educational standards. An incorrect approach that relies on external, unverified sources for process improvement is professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge the Academy's internal regulatory framework and the need for any proposed changes to be vetted and approved through official channels. Relying on anecdotal evidence or unverified suggestions from external parties bypasses the established quality control mechanisms and introduces a significant risk of implementing flawed or non-compliant procedures. This could lead to unintended consequences, such as procedural errors during the exam, data integrity issues, or even challenges to the validity of the examination results. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over accuracy in process changes is also professionally unsound. While efficiency is desirable, it must not come at the expense of correctness and adherence to established standards. Rushing through process modifications without thorough testing and validation increases the likelihood of errors and omissions, which can have serious repercussions for the examination's fairness and credibility. This approach neglects the fundamental principle that the integrity of the examination process is the highest priority. A further incorrect approach that involves adopting new technologies without a clear understanding of their compatibility with existing systems and regulatory requirements is also problematic. While technological advancements can offer benefits, their implementation must be carefully planned and executed to ensure seamless integration and compliance. Without proper due diligence, the introduction of new technology can create more problems than it solves, potentially disrupting the examination process and leading to non-compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem or inefficiency. Second, gather information from reliable internal sources and review existing regulations and guidelines. Third, brainstorm potential solutions, evaluating each against the established regulatory framework and ethical considerations. Fourth, select the most appropriate solution, develop an implementation plan, and monitor its effectiveness. Finally, document the changes and ensure ongoing compliance. Question 4. Examination of the data shows that the current student enrollment process at Akhbar Academy is experiencing significant delays, leading to student dissatisfaction and potential loss of applicants. To address this, a proposal has been made to streamline the application review by reducing the number of mandatory verification steps for international applicants, arguing that this will expedite the process and improve applicant experience. Which of the following represents the most appropriate approach to optimizing the enrollment process while adhering to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines? Option A. Introduce a tiered system where only a subset of international applicants undergo full verification, while others are processed with fewer checks based on perceived risk to speed up overall throughput. Option B. Delegate the decision-making authority for waiving verification steps to individual admissions officers to allow for on-the-spot adjustments based on applicant urgency. Option C. Immediately reduce the number of verification steps for international applicants to expedite the process, as the primary goal is to improve applicant experience and enrollment numbers, with a secondary review of compliance later. Option D. Implement a revised process that maintains all essential verification steps for international applicants, but utilizes digital tools to automate data collection and cross-referencing, thereby reducing manual processing time and potential for human error, while ensuring full compliance with Academy admission regulations. The correct answer is D. Implement a revised process that maintains all essential verification steps for international applicants, but utilizes digital tools to automate data collection and cross-referencing, thereby reducing manual processing time and potential for human error, while ensuring full compliance with Academy admission regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the desire for efficiency and the absolute necessity of adhering to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established regulatory framework and internal guidelines. Process optimization, while valuable, must never compromise compliance or ethical standards. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing improvements that enhance operational flow without violating any prescribed procedures or principles. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks or inefficiencies, and proposing modifications that align with and strengthen adherence to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's regulatory requirements. This approach prioritizes compliance and ethical conduct, ensuring that any optimization efforts serve to reinforce, rather than undermine, the established standards. Specifically, it requires a thorough understanding of the Academy's internal regulations, which govern admissions, academic procedures, and student conduct, and ensuring that any proposed changes are vetted against these rules. The ethical justification stems from the duty of care to uphold the integrity of the Academy's operations and to ensure fair and equitable treatment for all stakeholders, as mandated by the Academy's governing principles. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering regulatory impact would fail by potentially overlooking critical procedural steps required by the Academy's framework. This could lead to noncompliance, such as bypassing necessary documentation checks or approval processes, thereby creating vulnerabilities and potential for errors. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction by eliminating essential oversight mechanisms would be ethically flawed. This could compromise the quality of services or the fairness of processes, directly contravening the Academy's commitment to excellence and integrity. A third incorrect approach that involves implementing changes without proper consultation or approval from relevant Academy authorities would violate established governance structures and could lead to operational chaos and a breakdown of accountability, which is a direct ethical and regulatory failure. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the relevant regulatory landscape and internal policies. This is followed by a thorough assessment of current processes to identify areas for improvement. Any proposed optimization must then be rigorously evaluated against these established rules and ethical considerations. Seeking input from stakeholders and obtaining necessary approvals before implementation is crucial. This structured approach ensures that efficiency gains are achieved responsibly and sustainably within the bounds of compliance and ethical practice. Question 5. Assessment of the proposed internal process optimization for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's applicant communication system, which suggests bypassing the official admissions portal for direct email correspondence to expedite responses, requires careful consideration of its alignment with the Academy's established operational guidelines and relevant Egyptian educational regulations. Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the current admissions portal's functionality and identify specific bottlenecks, Then propose targeted improvements that remain within the existing regulatory framework for applicant communication. Option B. Seek advice from external consultants specializing in general customer service improvements, without first verifying if their recommendations comply with Egyptian educational sector regulations. Option C. Adopt the direct email approach for all communications, assuming that informal efficiency gains outweigh the need for strict adherence to the admissions portal's established protocols. Option D. Implement the direct email communication strategy immediately to enhance applicant experience and reduce response times, as efficiency is a key performance indicator. The correct answer is D. Implement the direct email communication strategy immediately to enhance applicant experience and reduce response times, as efficiency is a key performance indicator. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the desire to streamline internal processes for efficiency and the absolute requirement to adhere strictly to the regulatory framework governing the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's operations. The Academy, as an educational institution, is subject to specific governmental and institutional guidelines that dictate how admissions, academic records, and student communications are managed. Any deviation, even if perceived as an improvement in speed or convenience, risks violating these established protocols, potentially leading to compliance issues, data integrity breaches, or unfair treatment of applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing internal procedures against the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's official regulatory framework and relevant Egyptian educational laws. This ensures that any proposed process optimization is not only efficient, but also fully compliant with legal and institutional mandates. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes regulatory adherence and ethical conduct, safeguarding the integrity of the Academy's operations and the rights of its stakeholders. It aligns with the principle of acting within the bounds of established law and institutional policy, which is a cornerstone of professional responsibility in any regulated environment. An incorrect approach that bypasses established communication channels and directly implements changes based on informal feedback fails to acknowledge the hierarchical and regulatory structure of the Academy. This bypass constitutes a regulatory failure because it circumvents the proper channels for policy review and approval, which are designed to ensure compliance and mitigate risks. Ethically, it is flawed as it can lead to inconsistencies in how applicants are treated and may undermine the transparency of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on speed without considering the regulatory implications, is also professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the critical aspect of compliance, which is paramount in an academic and potentially government-regulated setting. The regulatory failure here lies in prioritizing perceived efficiency over adherence to established rules and procedures, which could have serious consequences if discovered during an audit or review. A third incorrect approach, which involves seeking external, non-official advice for process changes, introduces significant risk. The regulatory failure stems from relying on information that is not officially sanctioned or validated by the Academy's governing bodies or relevant Egyptian educational authorities. This can lead to the adoption of non-compliant practices, creating a false sense of security while operating outside the legal framework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of any proposed change. This includes 1. Identifying the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the process in question. 2. Assessing the potential impact of the proposed change on compliance with these regulations. 3. Consulting official documentation and seeking guidance from designated compliance officers or legal counsel within the Academy. 4. Documenting the review process and the rationale for any approved changes. 5. Ensuring that all implemented changes are communicated through official channels and that relevant personnel are adequately trained. This structured approach ensures that efficiency gains are achieved responsibly and ethically within the strict confines of the regulatory environment. Question 6. Which approach would be most appropriate for optimizing the administrative processes related to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam, ensuring both efficiency and strict adherence to the Academy's examination regulations? Option A. Implementing a new online application portal that allows for immediate feedback on incomplete submissions, while deferring a detailed review of its compliance with data security regulations until after its launch. Option B. conducting a comprehensive review of all current administrative workflows, identifying areas for streamlining and proposing modifications that are explicitly vetted against the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines before implementation. Option C. Introducing a faster method for distributing examination materials by reducing the number of checkpoints for verification, prioritizing speed over the established security protocols outlined in the Academy's guidelines. Option D. Outsourcing the entire application processing to a third-party vendor based on their reputation for speed, without conducting an in-depth audit of their adherence to the specific regulatory requirements of the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam. The correct answer is A. Implementing a new online application portal that allows for immediate feedback on incomplete submissions, while deferring a detailed review of its compliance with data security regulations until after its launch. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient operational processes within the Akhbar El-Yam Academy with the absolute imperative of adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing its entrance examinations. The challenge lies in identifying process improvements that enhance effectiveness without inadvertently creating loopholes or compromising the integrity and fairness of the examination process, which is paramount for maintaining public trust and ensuring equitable access to education. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing examination procedures, identifying bottlenecks or areas of inefficiency, and proposing modifications that streamline operations while strictly maintaining compliance with all Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam regulations. This includes ensuring that any proposed changes do not alter the fundamental assessment criteria, the security protocols for question papers and answer sheets, or the fairness of the evaluation process. The regulatory justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of upholding the integrity of the examination as mandated by the Academy's governing statutes and examination guidelines. Ethically, it ensures fairness to all candidates by preserving a standardized and equitable testing environment. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on perceived efficiency gains, without a rigorous assessment of their impact on regulatory compliance. For instance, adopting a new digital submission system for applications without verifying its compatibility with the Academy's data privacy regulations or its ability to prevent fraudulent submissions would be a regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach would be to streamline the invigilation process by reducing the number of supervisors below the mandated ratio stipulated in the examination guidelines, thereby compromising security and potentially leading to irregularities. Ethically, these approaches fail to uphold the duty of care owed to candidates and the public to conduct a fair and secure examination. Professionals tasked with optimizing processes for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory adherence. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulations and guidelines thoroughly. 2. Identifying potential process improvements. 3. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment of each proposed improvement against all relevant regulations and ethical considerations. 4. Consulting with legal and compliance officers if there is any ambiguity. 5. Implementing only those changes that demonstrably enhance efficiency without compromising regulatory integrity or fairness. Question 7. Implementation of a new digital system for candidate registration and pre-exam information dissemination for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam, aiming to reduce administrative workload and improve communication, must strictly adhere to which of the following principles? Option A. Allowing candidates to choose between the new digital system and traditional paper-based registration, even if the digital system is not yet fully validated against all examination requirements. Option B. Implementing the digital system with a focus on rapid deployment to meet immediate administrative needs, with the understanding that regulatory compliance can be addressed through post-implementation audits. Option C. Ensuring the digital system's functionalities and data handling protocols are fully compliant with the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established examination regulations and data privacy guidelines, and that all candidates have equitable access to the system without requiring advanced technical skills. Option D. Prioritizing the integration of the most advanced and feature-rich digital platform available to enhance user experience, even if it necessitates minor deviation from existing registration procedures. The correct answer is C. Ensuring the digital system's functionalities and data handling protocols are fully compliant with the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established examination regulations and data privacy guidelines, and that all candidates have equitable access to the system without requiring advanced technical skills. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the need for efficient process optimization and the absolute requirement to adhere to the regulatory framework of the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam. The challenge lies in identifying improvements that enhance operational flow without compromising the integrity, fairness, or compliance mandated by the exam's specific rules and guidelines. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to distinguish between beneficial procedural adjustments and those that could inadvertently violate established protocols or create an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks or inefficiencies, and proposing modifications that demonstrably improve speed, clarity, or resource utilization, while remaining strictly within the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's defined examination regulations. This approach is ethically and regulatorily justified because it prioritizes compliance and fairness. By focusing on optimization that does not alter the core examination experience or introduce any form of bias, it upholds the principles of a standardized and equitable assessment. The regulatory framework for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam, by its nature, aims to ensure a level playing field, and any optimization must serve this overarching goal. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering regulatory implications would fail by potentially overlooking critical procedural steps mandated by the exam. For instance, rushing the distribution of materials or the collection of answer sheets could lead to errors, security breaches, or unequal time allowances for candidates, all of which would violate the spirit and letter of the exam's regulations. Another incorrect approach that introduces technology without prior approval or validation would be ethically flawed. This could lead to technical glitches that disrupt the exam, compromise data security, or create an unfair advantage for candidates with better access to or familiarity with the new technology, thereby violating the principle of equal opportunity and potentially the exam's specific guidelines on acceptable tools. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over procedural integrity would be unacceptable. Cutting corners on essential security measures or invigilation staff, even if it saves money, directly undermines the exam's credibility and fairness, violating the ethical obligation to conduct a secure and impartial examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage evaluation. First, thoroughly understand the specific regulatory framework governing the examination. Second, identify potential areas for process improvement. Third, critically assess each proposed improvement against the regulatory requirements, ethical considerations, and the core objectives of the examination. Fourth, consult with relevant authorities or stakeholders if there is any ambiguity regarding compliance. Finally, implement only those optimizations that are demonstrably compliant, fair, and contribute to the overall integrity of the examination process. Question 8. Process analysis reveals that the current method for reconciling bank statements with the company's general ledger is time-consuming and prone to manual data entry errors. The finance department is under pressure to reduce operational costs and improve turnaround times for month-end closing. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to regulatory requirements for financial reporting accuracy? Option A. Discontinue the detailed reconciliation process and rely solely on periodic spot checks to identify discrepancies. Option B. Outsource the reconciliation to a third-party vendor without a thorough review of their internal controls and data security measures. Option C. Implement an automated bank reconciliation software that integrates directly with the general ledger, ensuring real-time data transfer and reducing manual intervention. Option D. Delegate the reconciliation task to junior staff with minimal training to expedite the process and reduce labor costs. The correct answer is C. Implement an automated bank reconciliation software that integrates directly with the general ledger, ensuring real-time data transfer and reducing manual intervention. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficiency and cost reduction with the imperative to maintain the integrity and accuracy of financial reporting, which is a cornerstone of regulatory compliance. The pressure to streamline processes without compromising accuracy necessitates careful consideration of potential risks and adherence to established professional standards. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes to identify inefficiencies and potential areas for improvement, while simultaneously ensuring that any proposed changes do not negatively impact the reliability of financial data or violate relevant regulations. This approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the current state, the identification of specific pain points, and the development of solutions that are both effective and compliant. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing financial reporting and auditing, mandate accuracy and transparency. Therefore, any process optimization must be conducted with these principles at the forefront, ensuring that controls are maintained or enhanced, and that the final output remains auditable and trustworthy. Ethical considerations also demand that professionals act with due care and diligence, avoiding shortcuts that could lead to misrepresentation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a corresponding assessment of impact on data integrity would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the fundamental regulatory requirement for accurate financial reporting. Such an approach risks introducing errors, omissions, or misstatements, which could lead to regulatory sanctions, reputational damage, and loss of stakeholder confidence. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing new technology without adequate testing or validation would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and could result in unforeseen system failures or data corruption, again compromising the accuracy and reliability of financial information. Professionals should approach process optimization by first establishing clear objectives that include both efficiency and accuracy. They should then conduct a comprehensive assessment of current processes, identifying risks and control weaknesses. Solutions should be developed collaboratively, involving relevant stakeholders, and should undergo rigorous testing and validation before implementation. Continuous monitoring and review are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. This structured, risk-aware, and compliance-focused methodology ensures that process improvements align with both business objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 9. During the evaluation of the Akhbar Academy's undergraduate admissions process, a committee is tasked with identifying areas for improvement to enhance efficiency and applicant experience. The current system involves multiple stages of review, leading to extended processing times. The committee is considering various strategies to streamline the process. Which of the following strategies best aligns with the principles of fair and transparent academic admissions, while also aiming for process optimization? Option A. Implementing a phased review system where initial screening is automated based on clearly defined academic thresholds, followed by a more in-depth qualitative assessment by a diverse panel for shortlisted candidates. Option B. Significantly reducing the time allocated for each application review stage to accelerate the overall timeline, even if it means less detailed scrutiny per application. Option C. Prioritizing applications from candidates with personal connections to academy faculty or staff for expedited review. Option D. Relying primarily on the subjective impressions and recommendations of individual admissions officers to quickly rank applicants. Correct answer is A. Implementing a phased review system where initial screening is automated based on clearly defined academic thresholds, followed by a more in-depth qualitative assessment by a diverse panel for shortlisted candidates. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficiency in academic admissions with the imperative to uphold fairness and transparency, as mandated by the Akhbar Academy's internal regulations and general principles of academic integrity. The pressure to optimize the process without compromising its integrity is a common dilemma in administrative roles. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing admissions workflow to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the development and implementation of standardized, objective criteria for applicant evaluation. This aligns with the Academy's commitment to merit-based admissions and ensures that all applicants are assessed on a level playing field, thereby adhering to the spirit of fairness and equal opportunity inherent in academic institutions. This approach prioritizes data-driven decision-making and the establishment of clear, defensible standards, which are crucial for maintaining the credibility of the admissions process. An incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or personal recommendations without a structured framework risks introducing bias and subjectivity. This would violate the Academy's implicit commitment to objective evaluation and could lead to the rejection of more qualified candidates or the acceptance of less qualified ones, undermining the integrity of the student body. Another incorrect approach that focuses on speed above all else, such as drastically reducing the review time for applications without a corresponding increase in reviewer capacity or efficiency tools, could lead to superficial assessments. This would fail to adequately identify suitable candidates and could result in overlooking critical aspects of an applicant's profile, thereby compromising the quality of admissions and potentially violating the Academy's standards for thoroughness. A third incorrect approach that involves bypassing established review procedures to expedite certain applications, even for seemingly valid reasons, introduces an element of arbitrariness. This undermines the principle of consistent application of rules and can create perceptions of favoritism, which is detrimental to the overall fairness and transparency of the admissions process. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical principles. This involves identifying the core objectives of the process, e.g., admitting qualified students, assessing the current state, and then developing solutions that enhance efficiency while strictly adhering to established fairness and transparency standards. Continuous evaluation and feedback loops are essential to ensure that optimized processes remain effective and equitable. Question 10. The evaluation methodology shows that the current student admissions process at Akhbar Academy is experiencing delays and inefficiencies. Considering the Academy's commitment to academic excellence and fair selection, which of the following strategies best represents an optimized approach to address these issues? Option A. Automating the final selection decision based solely on entrance exam scores, bypassing committee review. Option B. Outsourcing the entire admissions process to a third-party vendor without establishing clear performance metrics or oversight. Option C. Significantly reducing the number of assessment criteria for applicants to speed up the review process. Option D. Implementing a phased digital transformation of the application submission and initial screening stages, coupled with standardized evaluation rubrics for interviews and a centralized document verification system. The correct answer is D. Implementing a phased digital transformation of the application submission and initial screening stages, coupled with standardized evaluation rubrics for interviews and a centralized document verification system. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a need to optimize the process of student admissions at Akhbar Academy. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing efficiency with fairness and adherence to established academic and administrative protocols. The Academy must ensure that the optimization does not compromise the integrity of the selection process or lead to discriminatory practices, which could have significant reputational and legal consequences. Careful judgment is required to identify improvements that are both effective and compliant with the Academy's internal regulations and any overarching educational guidelines. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the current admissions workflow to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the implementation of targeted changes that enhance speed and accuracy without sacrificing the thoroughness of candidate assessment. This might include leveraging technology for initial screening, standardizing interview procedures, or streamlining document verification. This approach is professionally sound because it is data-driven and aims for measurable improvements within the existing framework. It aligns with principles of good governance and operational excellence, ensuring that the Academy's processes are robust and defensible. Ethically, it upholds the commitment to a fair and transparent admissions process for all applicants. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the time taken for each application without considering the quality of assessment would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the core purpose of admissions, which is to select qualified candidates. Such an approach risks overlooking crucial details about applicants, potentially leading to the admission of unsuitable students or the rejection of deserving ones. thereby undermining the academic standards of the academy. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing established approval steps for candidate selection to expedite the process is ethically and regulatorily unsound. This undermines the internal controls designed to ensure fairness and prevent bias. It creates opportunities for favoritism or errors, violating principles of accountability and transparency. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction by significantly cutting down on the number of personnel involved in the admissions review process, without a corresponding increase in efficiency through technology or process redesign, would also be flawed. This could lead to an overwhelming workload for remaining staff, increasing the likelihood of errors and reducing the depth of evaluation for each applicant, compromising the quality of the admissions outcome. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a comprehensive understanding of the current process, clear articulation of optimization goals, and a thorough risk assessment of proposed changes. Professionals should consult relevant internal policies and any applicable external regulations. They should prioritize solutions that enhance efficiency while maintaining or improving the quality and fairness of the outcome. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of implemented changes are also crucial to ensure sustained effectiveness and compliance. Question 11. Performance analysis shows that the current data entry and reporting processes at Akhbar El-Yam Academy are time-consuming and resource-intensive. The Academy is exploring options to streamline these operations to improve efficiency and reduce costs. Which of the following strategies best balances the need for process optimization with the Academy's ethical and regulatory obligations? Option A. Introducing new software that promises significant efficiency gains, but has not undergone a comprehensive review for compatibility with existing data security policies or regulatory compliance requirements. Option B. Outsourcing all data processing and reporting functions to an external vendor with a lower cost structure, without conducting extensive due diligence on their data security and compliance practices. Option C. Implementing a phased approach to automate data entry and reporting, incorporating robust validation checks and security protocols, and conducting thorough staff training on new procedures. Option D. Accelerating the manual data entry process by reducing the number of verification steps, prioritizing speed over absolute accuracy to meet reporting deadlines. The correct answer is C. Implementing a phased approach to automate data entry and reporting, incorporating robust validation checks and security protocols, and conducting thorough staff training on new procedures. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficiency and cost reduction with the fundamental ethical and regulatory obligations to maintain data integrity and client confidentiality. The pressure to optimize processes can lead to shortcuts that, while seemingly beneficial in the short term, can have severe long-term consequences, including regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement optimizations that enhance performance without compromising these core principles. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements that leverage technology and best practices. This approach prioritizes data security, accuracy, and compliance with Akhbar El-Yam Academy's internal policies and any relevant Egyptian financial regulations governing data handling and reporting. It ensures that any changes are thoroughly tested and validated before full implementation, minimizing the risk of errors or breaches. This aligns with the ethical duty of care and the regulatory requirement to operate with due diligence and integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction by outsourcing data processing to a less regulated third party without adequate due diligence would fail to uphold the duty of care and could violate data protection laws. This could lead to unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive information, resulting in significant penalties and reputational harm. Another incorrect approach that involves automating processes without proper validation or human oversight risks introducing systemic errors into financial reporting or client data, which is a direct contravention of accuracy and integrity requirements. Finally, an approach that prioritizes speed over accuracy, leading to the acceptance of potentially flawed data for the sake of faster reporting, undermines the fundamental principles of reliable financial information and client service, exposing the academy to significant risks. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of objectives, followed by a comprehensive risk assessment. This includes evaluating the potential impact of any proposed change on data integrity, client confidentiality, regulatory compliance, and overall operational effectiveness. Ethical considerations and regulatory requirements should be the primary filters through which potential solutions are evaluated. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure that implemented optimizations remain effective and compliant over time. Question 12. Process analysis reveals that the current applicant screening and document verification for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam is time-consuming. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for efficiency with the imperative to maintain the integrity and fairness of the admissions process, adhering strictly to the Academy's established guidelines? Option A. Delegate the complete management of applicant screening and document verification to an external service provider, with minimal internal oversight to reduce administrative burden. Option B. Automate the entire scoring process for all submitted application components, eliminating the need for human review of individual applicant scores to expedite the final selection. Option C. Implement a phased automation of document verification, incorporating real-time cross-referencing against official databases and requiring human review for any discrepancies or flagged anomalies, while simultaneously streamlining the initial data entry stages. Option D. Significantly reduce the time allocated for manual document checks by relying on applicant self-declarations for most supporting materials, with only a small percentage undergoing random verification. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased automation of document verification, incorporating real-time cross-referencing against official databases and requiring human review for any discrepancies or flagged anomalies, while simultaneously streamlining the initial data entry stages. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between achieving operational efficiency and upholding the integrity of academic processes, particularly within the context of an entrance examination. The pressure to streamline admissions can lead to shortcuts that compromise fairness and accuracy. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing demands. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing admission procedures to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements that enhance speed and accuracy without compromising the validity of the assessment or the fairness to all applicants. This aligns with the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's commitment to admitting qualified candidates through a transparent and equitable process. Adherence to the Academy's established admission regulations and ethical guidelines, which prioritize meritocracy and due diligence, is paramount. Any process optimization must ensure that it does not inadvertently create biases or introduce opportunities for manipulation, thereby safeguarding the reputation and credibility of the Academy. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the time taken for document verification without implementing robust cross-referencing mechanisms would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the ethical obligation to ensure the authenticity of applicant credentials, potentially leading to the admission of unqualified individuals and undermining the academic standards of the Academy. Such an approach would also contravene the implicit regulatory expectation of thoroughness in admissions, which is designed to prevent fraud and maintain a level playing field. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the automation of candidate scoring without human oversight for borderline cases would also be professionally flawed. While automation can increase efficiency, the absence of human review for ambiguous results risks misinterpreting data or failing to account for contextual nuances, leading to unfair assessments. This deviates from the ethical principle of ensuring fair evaluation and could violate the Academy's internal guidelines that mandate a degree of human judgment in critical decision-making processes. A third incorrect approach that involves outsourcing the entire admissions processing to a third-party vendor without establishing clear performance metrics and oversight mechanisms would be professionally unsound. This abdication of responsibility, even if intended to improve efficiency, risks a loss of control over the integrity of the admissions process. It could lead to breaches of data privacy, inconsistent application of criteria, and a general lack of accountability, all of which are ethically and regulatorily problematic for an academic institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Academy's mission, values, and regulatory framework. It requires a proactive identification of potential risks associated with any proposed process change, followed by a balanced assessment of benefits and drawbacks. Professionals should always prioritize fairness, accuracy, and transparency, seeking to optimize processes in a manner that enhances, rather than compromises, the integrity of the institution's core functions. Consultation with relevant stakeholders and adherence to established protocols are crucial steps in ensuring responsible and ethical decision-making. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that the current client account opening procedure at a financial institution is time-consuming and incurs significant administrative overhead. A proposal suggests adopting a simplified digital onboarding system that reduces verification steps to expedite the process, potentially increasing client acquisition rates. However, this proposal has not been formally reviewed against the Egyptian Financial Regulatory Authority (FRA) guidelines and relevant banking laws. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Seek external consultants from a different jurisdiction known for its advanced financial technology to advise on the implementation, prioritizing technological innovation over specific Egyptian regulatory considerations. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed digital onboarding system against all applicable Egyptian Financial Regulatory Authority (FRA) guidelines and relevant banking laws, involving the compliance and legal departments before any implementation. Option C. Proceed with a pilot implementation of the simplified digital onboarding system in a limited capacity to gauge its effectiveness, with the understanding that full compliance can be addressed later if issues arise. Option D. Immediately implement the simplified digital onboarding system to gain a competitive advantage and improve efficiency, assuming it aligns with general industry best practices. The correct answer is D. Immediately implement the simplified digital onboarding system to gain a competitive advantage and improve efficiency, assuming it aligns with general industry best practices. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the desire for efficiency and the absolute necessity of adhering to the regulatory framework governing financial institutions in Egypt, as mandated by the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam scope. The pressure to streamline processes, while generally a positive business objective, must never supersede legal and ethical obligations. Misinterpreting or circumventing these regulations can lead to severe consequences, including reputational damage, financial penalties, and legal repercussions for both the individual and the institution. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict application of the Egyptian Financial Regulatory Authority (FRA) guidelines and relevant banking laws. This means ensuring that any process optimization initiative is first vetted against these regulations to confirm full compliance. Specifically, it requires a proactive engagement with the compliance department and legal counsel to identify any potential conflicts or areas where existing regulations might be impacted by proposed changes. The ethical imperative is to uphold the integrity of the financial system and protect clients, which is directly supported by regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed or cost savings over regulatory compliance. For instance, implementing a new client onboarding procedure that bypasses mandatory Know Your Customer (KIC) checks, as stipulated by FRA regulations, would be a significant ethical and legal failure. This directly contravenes the anti-money laundering (AML) and counter-terrorism financing (CTF) provisions designed to safeguard the financial system. Another flawed approach would be to assume that a process is compliant simply because it mirrors practices in other, unregulated sectors or jurisdictions, ignoring the specific legal landscape of Egypt. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the unique regulatory environment. Professionals facing such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This begins with clearly identifying the objective of process optimization. Next, they must consult the relevant Egyptian laws and FRA regulations pertaining to the specific process. If there is any ambiguity or potential for non-compliance, seeking guidance from the compliance department and legal experts is paramount. The decision should always be to proceed only if the optimized process demonstrably meets or exceeds all regulatory requirements. If optimization necessitates a change that might conflict with regulations, the focus should shift to finding compliant alternatives rather than compromising on adherence. Question 14. Process analysis reveals that the current administration of the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam involves several manual steps that contribute to extended processing times for candidate applications and result collation. To enhance efficiency and reduce operational costs, a proposal has been made to automate certain aspects of the application review and to implement a new, faster method for scoring objective questions. Considering the paramount importance of maintaining the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process, as per the Academy's established guidelines, which of the following approaches best balances efficiency with ethical and regulatory compliance? Option A. Outsource the entire application processing and objective question scoring to a third-party vendor that offers a significantly faster turnaround time, with minimal oversight from Academy staff to reduce internal workload. Option B. Implement a fully automated system for initial application screening, flagging only those applications that deviate significantly from standard requirements, and introduce a new scoring algorithm for objective questions that prioritizes speed of processing over nuanced interpretation of answers. Option C. Expedite the collation of results by reducing the number of verification checks performed on objective question scores, assuming that the new scoring algorithm is inherently accurate and requires minimal oversight. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of all administrative workflows to identify bottlenecks and areas for genuine efficiency gains, such as digitizing forms and optimizing communication channels, while ensuring that any changes to scoring methods are rigorously tested for fairness and validity against established academic standards. The correct answer is B. Implement a fully automated system for initial application screening, flagging only those applications that deviate significantly from standard requirements, and introduce a new scoring algorithm for objective questions that prioritizes speed of processing over nuanced interpretation of answers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficiency and cost reduction with the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of academic processes and ensure fair assessment for all students. The Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam, like any reputable educational institution, operates under a framework of regulations and ethical guidelines designed to uphold academic standards. These typically emphasize fairness, transparency, and the prevention of any form of academic misconduct. The pressure to optimize processes, while often a legitimate business objective, must not compromise these core principles. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing examination procedures to identify genuine inefficiencies that do not impact the integrity or fairness of the exam. This might include streamlining administrative tasks, improving the clarity of instructions, or optimizing the distribution of resources. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with the overarching regulatory and ethical mandate of the Academy to provide a fair and valid assessment. It respects the principles of academic integrity by seeking improvements that do not introduce bias, compromise security, or disadvantage any candidate. The focus remains on enhancing the operational aspects without altering the fundamental fairness of the examination process. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes that, while appearing to optimize processes, could inadvertently compromise the fairness or security of the exam. For instance, reducing the time allocated for certain sections without a clear pedagogical justification or evidence that the original time was excessive could disadvantage students who require more time to demonstrate their knowledge. Similarly, altering the format of questions in a way that introduces ambiguity or favors a particular style of learning without proper validation would be ethically problematic. Another flawed approach would be to outsource critical aspects of exam administration, such as question setting or marking, to entities that do not adhere to the Academy's strict ethical and quality control standards, thereby risking a breach of confidentiality or the introduction of external biases. These approaches fail because they deviate from the core ethical responsibilities of an academic institution to ensure a level playing field and a valid measure of student aptitude, potentially violating internal academic regulations and broader ethical codes governing educational assessment. Professionals facing such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes academic integrity and fairness. This involves 1. clearly defining the objectives of process optimization and ensuring they are aligned with the Academy's mission. 2. Conducting a risk assessment for any proposed changes, specifically evaluating their potential impact on exam fairness, security, and validity. 3. Consulting relevant academic policies, regulatory guidelines, and ethical codes. 4. Seeking input from stakeholders, including faculty and academic administrators, to ensure proposed changes are pedagogically sound and ethically defensible. 5. Implementing changes incrementally and monitoring their impact closely to ensure no unintended negative consequences arise. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates a recurring bottleneck in the student application review process, leading to delays in admissions. Considering the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established operational guidelines and regulatory framework, which of the following strategies best addresses this issue while ensuring full compliance? Option A. Conducting a detailed review of the current application workflow against the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's specific procedural manuals and regulatory directives to identify areas for procedural refinement and potential automation within existing compliance boundaries. Option B. Outsourcing the entire application review process to a third-party vendor without a thorough assessment of their adherence to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's specific data security and privacy regulations. Option C. Implementing a new, faster digital review platform that streamlines document submission and initial screening, assuming it aligns with general data handling best practices. Option D. Introducing a policy to expedite reviews by allowing junior staff to approve applications without senior oversight, based on the assumption that efficiency gains are paramount. The correct answer is C. Implementing a new, faster digital review platform that streamlines document submission and initial screening, assuming it aligns with general data handling best practices. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient process management with the imperative to adhere to the specific regulatory framework governing the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's operations. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that are not only effective in improving operational flow, but also fully compliant with the Academy's established rules and guidelines. Misinterpreting or overlooking these regulations can lead to significant compliance breaches, reputational damage, and potential sanctions. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing processes against the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established regulatory framework. This means understanding the specific mandates, guidelines, and operational procedures outlined by the Academy. Optimization efforts must then be designed to enhance efficiency without deviating from these established rules. For instance, if the Academy's regulations stipulate a particular method for student data handling or a specific approval workflow for academic program changes, any optimization must respect these constraints. This approach ensures that improvements are sustainable and legally sound, aligning with the Academy's commitment to structured and compliant operations. An incorrect approach would be to implement optimizations based solely on general best practices or external efficiency models, without first verifying their compatibility with the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's specific regulatory framework. This could lead to violations of internal policies or external regulations that the Academy is bound by. For example, adopting a new digital submission system without ensuring it meets the Academy's data privacy and security protocols, as defined by its internal guidelines, would be a regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of implementation over thoroughness of review, leading to the adoption of changes that, while seemingly efficient, inadvertently bypass or contradict established procedures, thus creating compliance risks. Professionals should approach such situations by first conducting a comprehensive audit of current processes, cross-referencing them with the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's official regulatory documents. This should be followed by a gap analysis to identify areas for improvement. Proposed optimizations must then undergo a rigorous review process to confirm their alignment with all applicable regulations. Stakeholder consultation, particularly with compliance officers or legal counsel if necessary, is crucial before any changes are finalized and implemented. This systematic, regulation-first approach ensures that process optimization serves the Academy's goals without compromising its integrity or compliance standing. Question 16. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new, unproven software system could significantly reduce administrative workload for processing Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam applications. However, the system has not undergone independent security audits or pilot testing within an academic admissions context. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Implement the new software system immediately to realize cost savings and efficiency gains, assuming the benefits outweigh the potential, unquantified risks. Option B. Proceed with the implementation, but instruct the IT department to address any security or data integrity issues as they arise, prioritizing speed of deployment. Option C. Reject the new software system outright due to the lack of prior validation, opting to continue with the existing, less efficient but proven manual processes. Option D. Conduct a thorough pilot program with a small, representative group of applications, focusing on data security, accuracy, and compliance with academy admission regulations before full deployment. Correct answer is A. Implement the new software system immediately to realize cost savings and efficiency gains, assuming the benefits outweigh the potential, unquantified risks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the potential for increased efficiency and cost savings against the ethical and regulatory obligations to maintain data integrity and client confidentiality. The Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam, like many academic institutions, operates under strict guidelines regarding the handling of applicant data and the integrity of its admission processes. A hasty implementation of a new system without proper due diligence could lead to significant breaches of these regulations, impacting trust and potentially invalidating admission outcomes. The correct approach involves a phased implementation with rigorous testing and validation, prioritizing data security and compliance with the Academy's established policies and any relevant Egyptian data protection laws. This ensures that the benefits of process optimization are realized without compromising the integrity of the admission process or violating any regulatory requirements. This approach aligns with the ethical duty of care owed to applicants and the institution's commitment to fair and transparent admissions. An approach that immediately deploys the new system without thorough testing and validation is professionally unacceptable. This would violate the principle of due diligence, potentially leading to data errors, security vulnerabilities, and breaches of confidentiality, all of which are serious regulatory and ethical failures. Such an action could expose the Academy to legal repercussions and damage its reputation. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings above all else, even if it means overlooking potential risks to data integrity or applicant privacy. This demonstrates a failure to uphold professional responsibility and a disregard for the regulatory framework governing academic institutions. Ethical decision-making in this context requires a holistic view that considers not only financial benefits, but also the safeguarding of sensitive information and the fairness of the admission process. Professionals should approach such situations by first identifying all relevant regulatory requirements and institutional policies. They should then conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of any proposed changes, including potential impacts on data security, privacy, and process integrity. A pilot testing phase with clear success metrics and a rollback plan is crucial before full implementation. Continuous monitoring and evaluation post-implementation are also essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 17. Investigation of how Akhbar El-Yam Academy's admissions department can optimize its application processing workflow while strictly adhering to the Egyptian Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research's guidelines on student eligibility verification and data handling. Option A. Outsourcing the entire application processing to an international third-party vendor without first confirming their adherence to Egyptian data protection laws and the ministry's specific verification protocols. Option B. Implementing a new digital platform that automates the initial screening of applications based on predefined academic criteria, followed by a manual review of all supporting documents to ensure compliance with Egyptian eligibility requirements and data privacy regulations. Option C. Prioritizing speed of processing above all else, accepting applications based on self-reported information and deferring detailed verification to a later stage, potentially after enrollment. Option D. Adopting a fully automated system for application review and acceptance, bypassing manual verification of all submitted documents to expedite the admissions process. The correct answer is B. Implementing a new digital platform that automates the initial screening of applications based on predefined academic criteria, followed by a manual review of all supporting documents to ensure compliance with Egyptian eligibility requirements and data privacy regulations. Explanation: the scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient process optimization within Akhbar El-Yam Academy's administrative functions with the absolute necessity of adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing Egyptian educational institutions. This requires a deep understanding of the Academy's internal policies, as well as the overarching laws and guidelines set forth by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Egypt. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing improvements that are not only effective, but also fully compliant, avoiding any actions that could lead to regulatory breaches or compromise the integrity of the Academy's operations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing administrative processes, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement, and then proposing changes that are demonstrably aligned with Egyptian educational regulations and Academy bylaws. This includes ensuring that any proposed optimization does not inadvertently violate rules regarding student data privacy, admissions procedures, academic record keeping, or financial management as stipulated by Egyptian law and the Academy's charter. The justification for this approach rests on the principle of regulatory compliance, which is paramount in any institutional setting, especially within the academic sphere. Adherence to these regulations safeguards the Academy from legal repercussions, maintains its accreditation, and ensures fair and equitable treatment of students and staff. An incorrect approach would be to implement process changes based solely on perceived efficiency gains, without a prior rigorous assessment of their regulatory implications. For instance, automating a student record system without verifying compliance with Egyptian data protection laws would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Similarly, streamlining admissions by bypassing established verification procedures, even if faster, would violate regulations designed to ensure academic integrity and fair selection. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt external best practices from different jurisdictions without critically evaluating their applicability and legality within the Egyptian context. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the specific legal and cultural environment in which Akhbar El-Yam Academy operates, potentially leading to non-compliance and operational disruption. Professionals tasked with process optimization in this context should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory due diligence. This involves 1. Understanding the current regulatory landscape relevant to the specific administrative function. 2. Identifying potential process improvements. 3. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment of proposed changes against all applicable Egyptian laws and Academy regulations. 4. Consulting with legal and compliance departments. 5. Implementing changes incrementally with continuous monitoring for compliance. This systematic approach ensures that efficiency is pursued responsibly and ethically, within the bounds of the law. Question 18. System analysis indicates that the current client onboarding process at a financial advisory firm is time-consuming and prone to manual errors. To improve efficiency, the firm is considering implementing a new digital platform that automates data collection and client communication. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines expected for professionals operating within the Egyptian financial advisory sector, as per the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's curriculum? Option A. Adopting a widely used international client management software without conducting a thorough review of its compliance with specific Egyptian financial regulations and data localization requirements. Option B. Prioritizing the speed of onboarding by allowing clients to bypass certain data verification steps, with the understanding that these can be rectified later if regulatory issues arise. Option C. Automating all client communication through chatbots and automated email sequences, reducing the need for direct human interaction during the onboarding phase. Option D. Implementing a comprehensive digital onboarding platform that has been pre-vetted by the firm's compliance department to ensure adherence to Egyptian data protection laws and client confidentiality requirements, with built-in audit trails for all client interactions. The correct answer is D. Implementing a comprehensive digital onboarding platform that has been pre-vetted by the firm's compliance department to ensure adherence to Egyptian data protection laws and client confidentiality requirements, with built-in audit trails for all client interactions. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing internal processes for efficiency and adhering to the strict regulatory framework governing financial advisory services in Egypt, as mandated by the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's entrance exam curriculum. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that any process optimization does not inadvertently lead to a breach of client confidentiality, data security, or fair treatment principles, all of which are paramount under Egyptian financial regulations. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to balance operational improvements with unwavering compliance. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing client onboarding procedures, focusing on identifying bottlenecks and redundancies that can be streamlined without compromising the integrity of client data or the quality of service. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes regulatory adherence by ensuring that any proposed changes are vetted against specific provisions of Egyptian financial laws and academy guidelines concerning data protection, client due diligence, and record keeping. For instance, if a new digital signature process is considered, it must be evaluated for its compliance with Egyptian e-signature laws and its ability to maintain an auditable trail, thereby fulfilling regulatory requirements for secure and verifiable client consent. This proactive, compliance-first optimization ensures that efficiency gains do not come at the cost of legal or ethical violations. An incorrect approach that relies solely on external, unvetted software solutions for client data management poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Such an approach fails to account for the specific data privacy and security mandates within Egyptian financial law, potentially exposing client information to unauthorized access or breaches. This violates the principle of client confidentiality and could lead to severe penalties under Egyptian data protection legislation. Another incorrect approach, which involves automating client communication without human oversight, risks misinterpretation of client needs or the dissemination of inaccurate information, contravening ethical obligations to provide clear, accurate, and personalized advice. Furthermore, it bypasses crucial regulatory checks and balances designed to ensure client suitability and prevent mis-selling. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage approach. First, thoroughly understand the current process and its regulatory context. Second, identify potential areas for optimization. Third, rigorously assess each potential optimization against the specific requirements of Egyptian financial regulations and academy guidelines, focusing on data security, client confidentiality, and fair treatment. Fourth, consult with compliance officers or legal counsel if there is any ambiguity. Finally, implement changes incrementally and monitor their impact on both efficiency and compliance. Question 19. The assessment process reveals that a significant number of applicant files for the Akhbar El-Yam Academy entrance exam are missing supplementary documents that are explicitly listed as mandatory in the Academy's admissions guidelines. To expedite the processing and meet internal deadlines, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with the regulatory framework? Option A. Expedite the processing by approving applications with missing documents, relying on the assumption that these documents are standard and were likely submitted in previous admission cycles. Option B. Delegate the task of reviewing these incomplete files to junior administrative staff, instructing them to make a judgment call on whether the application can proceed based on the available information. Option C. Immediately contact each applicant to request the missing supplementary documents, clearly stating the deadline for submission as per the Academy's guidelines, and place their application on hold until all required materials are received. Option D. Proceed with the assessment of applications, noting the missing documents and assuming they will be provided later, while prioritizing the processing of complete files. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the assessment of applications, noting the missing documents and assuming they will be provided later, while prioritizing the processing of complete files. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in managing the integrity and fairness of an entrance examination process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficiency in processing applications with the absolute requirement of adhering to the Akhbar El-Yam Academy's established regulatory framework and guidelines for admissions. Any deviation, even if seemingly minor or intended to expedite the process, risks compromising the validity of the assessment and potentially violating the Academy's internal regulations, which are paramount for this entrance exam. The correct approach involves a meticulous, step-by-step verification of each applicant's submitted documents against the specific criteria outlined in the Akhbar Academy's admissions handbook. This ensures that every applicant is evaluated consistently and fairly, upholding the integrity of the selection process. This approach is ethically and regulatorily sound because it directly aligns with the Academy's stated procedures, which are designed to ensure transparency, equity, and compliance with its own admission standards. Adhering strictly to these guidelines prevents any perception of bias or preferential treatment, which is a fundamental ethical obligation in academic admissions. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness, such as approving applications based on a quick visual scan without cross-referencing all required documents, fails to meet the regulatory requirements of the Akhbar Academy. This bypasses the established verification protocols, potentially leading to the admission of unqualified candidates or the rejection of eligible ones, thereby undermining the fairness of the entire process. Another incorrect approach, which involves making assumptions about missing documentation based on previous year's admissions, is also professionally unacceptable. This violates the principle of applying current, specific regulations and introduces an element of subjectivity and potential inconsistency, which is contrary to the systematic and documented procedures mandated by the Academy. Furthermore, an approach that delegates the final verification to junior staff without a clear oversight mechanism or a robust quality control process introduces a significant risk of errors and non-compliance with the Academy's established quality standards. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established procedures and regulations above all else. This involves a clear understanding of the Akhbar Academy's specific admission guidelines, a commitment to meticulous detail, and a proactive approach to seeking clarification when any ambiguity arises. The process should be structured to include checks and balances, ensuring that each step is completed accurately and in accordance with the defined regulatory framework. Question 20. When evaluating potential process optimizations within an Egyptian financial institution to enhance operational efficiency, which of the following strategies best aligns with the absolute priority of adhering to the regulatory framework and guidelines specific to the Akhbar Academy entrance exams jurisdiction? Option A. Adopting new technological solutions that promise significant efficiency gains, with a secondary consideration for their compliance implications within the Egyptian context. Option B. Expediting operational processes by temporarily bypassing certain internal control checks that are perceived as time-consuming, with the intention of addressing them later. Option C. Implementing streamlined workflows based on international best practices observed in other markets, prioritizing speed and cost reduction. Option D. Conducting a thorough review of existing procedures to identify inefficiencies, followed by the development and implementation of revised processes that are explicitly vetted against Egyptian financial laws and central bank directives. The correct answer is C. Implementing streamlined workflows based on international best practices observed in other markets, prioritizing speed and cost reduction. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient operational processes with the imperative to adhere strictly to the regulatory framework governing financial institutions in Egypt, as mandated by the Akhbar Academy's curriculum. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and implementing process improvements that enhance efficiency without compromising compliance or introducing new risks that could violate Egyptian central bank regulations or relevant financial laws. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing workflows to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the development and implementation of streamlined procedures that are fully compliant with Egyptian financial regulations. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes regulatory adherence as the foundational element of any process optimization. By ensuring that all proposed changes are vetted against the specific requirements of Egyptian financial law and central bank directives, it mitigates the risk of non-compliance, which can lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. This proactive stance on compliance is a cornerstone of responsible financial management in Egypt. An incorrect approach would be to implement process changes based solely on perceived efficiency gains without a thorough regulatory impact assessment. This could lead to violations of Egyptian financial laws, such as those pertaining to data privacy, customer due diligence, or reporting requirements, even if the changes appear to streamline operations. Another incorrect approach is to adopt industry best practices from other jurisdictions without verifying their applicability and compatibility with the Egyptian regulatory landscape. This can result in the introduction of procedures that are either illegal or impractical within the Egyptian context, thereby creating compliance risks. A third incorrect approach is to bypass established internal control mechanisms in the name of speed. This undermines the integrity of the financial institution's operations and can lead to errors, fraud, or regulatory breaches, directly contravening the principles of sound governance expected by Egyptian financial authorities. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the applicable Egyptian regulatory framework. Any proposed process optimization must then be evaluated against these regulations. A risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential compliance issues arising from the proposed changes. Stakeholder consultation, including legal and compliance departments, is crucial before implementation. Finally, a pilot testing phase followed by ongoing monitoring ensures that the optimized processes remain compliant and effective.